Okay, so this one takes on one of the longest running conflicts in recent history. Because while the title is Oslo, it actually deals with the conflict between Israel and Palestine. And that conflict has just never made any sense to me. I don't know what even exactly started it. And I have no idea how they haven't managed to figure out some sort of solution after so many decades. You would also think that after this long and this much violence, one side would have emerged as the winner. And preferably they could have come up with some sort of slightly more peaceful solution than all-out war as well. But no, they've been at it since long before I was born, and they are still at it to this day. But that didn't stop the Norwegians from attempting to figure out a way to reach peace way back in the early 90s. And that's what this movie focuses on, the secret peace talks between the two parties taking place in Oslo. And I had actually heard about these talks, but I didn't really know any of the details. But turns out it's a pretty fascinating story, and I found this to be a very interesting movie too. And because it's a HBO production, you know it's gonna be a quality production. Like, it's just professionally made, and I don't really have any qualms with the overall filmmaking here. But at the same time, nothing really stood out as being particularly impressive either. It's just solid all around, and well, the only real criticism I have is probably the Middle Eastern filter. A lot of movies do that. Too many actually, where every scene that takes place in the Middle East has this yellowish, brownish hue to it. And I just feel like that's a very lazy way of conveying to the audience where in the world we are. But other than that, yeah, I don't really have any issues with the technical execution of the movie. And when it comes to the acting, I think it's pretty good overall, sometimes even excellent. Although I will say that the Norwegian accents from a few of the people were pretty hilarious. I mean, at first it seemed like Ruth Wilson was actually putting in some effort. But as the movie progressed, she just weaved in and out of that accent. Sometimes it didn't even feel like she was trying, and I just found that to be rather amusing. But did it really have a major impact on my overall enjoyment of the film? Not really. I also recognized one of the actors playing some sort of Norwegian statesman, because he's a Finnish actor, and I'm not really sure why they just couldn't find a Norwegian to play his part. I mean, it's not a major role, you don't need him for face recognition like Ruth Wilson, for example. But hey, that's just another nitpick that doesn't really have any major impact on the movie as a whole. But in general, I feel like the story is what carried this movie, that basically kept me interested. And I feel like I actually learned a thing or two about the conflict it deals with. And I will say that, if nothing else, the movie does make one very good point. And hilariously enough, I've heard Joe Rogan of all people make a similar point many times before too. And the point is, if you get very few people together, they can usually find a way to get along, right? They don't have to be friends, but they're probably gonna be somewhat civil. And if it's in the interest of those people to solve a conflict, it's very likely they can find some sort of solution, right? You just need to see the other party as being a fellow human being, not as this faceless enemy that haunts your dreams and is probably largely a figment of your imagination. And if we could somehow manage to do that, I think most large-scale conflict in the world could be avoided. But unfortunately, that's not really the world we live in, and yeah, when you involve more people, involve governments and peoples, that behavior changes and becomes much more tribal. It's now us against them, and what we end up with are conflicts like the one between Israel and Palestine. And I have no solutions to offer you, nor does this movie, but I found it to be fascinating nonetheless. It's not a great movie, but it's pretty solid, and as a result, I think I'm gonna give it a low 6. Boop. And if you think it sounds interesting, you should probably check it out. Otherwise, you can most likely skip it or do whatever you feel like. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.